All right, everyone. Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football, joining you on a Sunday afternoon, striking up the live chat and breaking down college football as we typically do. So I let you know that on this Sunday, it's 4 o'clock Eastern time. Here I am. So I would like to go to a regular schedule, and we'll talk about that in just a few minutes. First, let's take care of business in regards to subscribing, liking, and commenting. It's very important to the channel as it is to all YouTubers. So please like and comment or dislike if you don't like what we're saying. But even if you disagree, but you agree that we're actually approaching this the right way and it's a quality college football conversation, discussion, debate, and analysis, then like, comment, and subscribe to the channel, and let your friends and family know that we're here if they love college football. If they just marginally like college football, tell them to subscribe as well. And of course, we expect that to spike here very soon in the next couple months as we gear up toward the 2018 season. So again, Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football, please subscribe. All right. If you like the audio instead, you go to Twitter, Stitcher, Podbean, iTunes, and Google Play. That would be a combination, I guess, of Twitter and Stitcher would come out as Twitcher. So it's Stitcher, it's Google Play, it's iTunes, and Podbean, and you can catch the audio right there at Mark Rogers TV. But it's going to be a little bit delayed from the post that you see on the video here, because by the time I get to stripping the audio down and sending that out, sometimes it's a day or two later, which is going to be crucial during the college football season. Of course, I need to be a little bit more timely with those audio posts, but right now it doesn't much matter. We're on Twitter. We're on Facebook. Just search Mark Rogers TV. I let some of you know that last night that if you follow me on Twitter, I will follow back. I don't exactly know who's following me, so I just don't follow anybody who follows me. You've got to be either a friend or you've got to be somebody with a legitimate sports platform or industry platform. Otherwise, I'm not going to follow you. But if I told you last night, as I did, that I'm going to follow you if you follow me, if you're a supporter of the college football content here in the channel, then I'm going to follow you. So I noticed that Al Johnson, who was on the chat last night, followed me on Twitter. So I followed him right back. Now, you may have to give me a little nudge in case I don't recognize the follow. So if you follow me here at Mark Rogers TV, and you follow me on Twitter and I didn't follow back, then all you need to do is just say, hey, Mark, I follow you on your YouTube channel, watch your stuff, and you said you'd follow back. Just say hi, and I will follow back on Twitter as well. So before we get to the news of the day and what I'd like to focus on here, I'll let you know that we have a contest running. Alonzo1219 has been generous enough to supply the swag. And again, that's Alonzo1219, the U family. We've got a contest running from now that started on June 15th all the way to July 15th, that if you bring the most subscribers to Mark Rogers TV and you have already subscribed to Alonzo1219, you're a subscriber to him, you bring me the most subscribers, then you get some swag. And it's a really nice swag, too. It's not just like a water bottle. And I will detail that a little bit later. Hat, shirt, and also some really nice chains. So think turnover chain and then put that in the motif of whatever school, whatever team program that you rep. And there you go. It's that nice. Over the last couple of days, I've had interviews with two of the top high school. Torber, he's a top 50 wide receiver who's committed to Mississippi State. I'll release that interview most likely tomorrow. And Renardo Green, top 35 cornerback, who has committed to Florida State. Quentin Torber, Renardo Green, those interviews coming out in the next few days. Over the last week or so, we've knocked out the top 5 SEC quarterbacks and wide receivers, top 5 ACC running backs, top 10 quarterbacks nationally. My top 10 non-conference games. You may have seen that earlier today, I knocked out week 1 of the under-the-radar games. So some of those under-the-radar games not involving the very top teams, top 10 teams, but some of the group of 5 and some of the lesser power 5s that I find very intriguing, those matchups. I knocked out the week 1 games. I'm going to look at week 2, 3, and 4. Just recently on the channel, and I'll probably miss some teams. We've talked to Ohio State, Michigan, Clemson, TCU, Nebraska, UCLA, Alabama, LSU, all sorts of teams on here. Mitch Light of Athlon Sports joined us a couple days ago. That's a great conversation. So go back about 5 videos on the channel, and this conversation, if you love college football and love to get into the debates about conferences and teams and the college football playoff and what works and what doesn't, and what the season looks like upcoming, if you like the big picture, join my conversation with Mitch Light from Athlons and his Cover 2 podcast. Jerry DiNardo from the Big Ten. Of course, we talked the Big Ten. We didn't talk the Big 12 or the Pac-12. We talked the Big Ten with Jerry DiNardo from the Big Ten Network, and requested by NCIS Fanatic 21, who I hope is on the live chat or gets this message. He asked me to reach out to Glenn Mason of the Big Ten Network. I did that about an hour ago. Glenn Mason has gotten back to me and says, heck yeah, I'll come on Mark Rogers TV and talk Big Ten. Glenn Mason of the Big Ten Network, so we have to work that out this week. Really, my schedule's wide open in terms of content, so you're going to see me do a lot of solo stuff this week. I only really set up Wednesday night. So Wednesday night, we've got 7 o'clock Ohio State blowout. So if you saw what we did last Thursday night with UCLA with 2 contributors, we're doing it even bigger with Ohio State at 7 o'clock Eastern time, Wednesday night. Claire Crawford, Tony Gerdeman, and Steve Hellwagon talking Ohio State football. At 8:30, we got Dwayne Holloway coming on for a very first appearance here at Mark Rogers TV. Glad to have tracked down Dwayne, who's been a great supporter, has his own YouTube channel there, and we'll talk more about his efforts there, and we'll talk Canes at 8:30 on Wednesday night Eastern time. And at 10 o'clock, we've got Mike LaValle and Kevin McGuffey from Last Word on College Football to break down the top 5 SEC wide receivers and tight ends. And again, you should know that regardless of what the subject is, if you want to talk college football, you talk about whatever you want on the chat, and I will address as much as I can get to. In today's live stream, I would like to run down what was just released a couple days ago, the SI.com, Sports Illustrated's top 100 college football players for this season, and see what you guys think about their rankings. All right, the SI Top 100. So let's strike up the live chat and we'll go to it. So my live streams this week, and I would really like to set up a regular schedule. So we've got 4 o'clock Eastern time on Sunday. Let's go Monday night at 6 Eastern. Then Wednesday, of course, I'm lined up with Ohio State, Miami, and the SEC all night. Thursday night at 7 o'clock Eastern time, let's go with that. So that's probably going to be pretty consistent. Sunday at 4 o'clock Eastern time, Monday at 6, Wednesday and Thursday nights at 7, Friday and Saturday a bit more of a wild card with other obligations. All right, let's strike up the live chat before we look at SI's top 100 players for this season and see what you guys are thinking about. I would really like to see if NCIS Fanatic 21's on here. All right, Machine Unit. Mark, do you think the NCAA should expand to a 6 or 18 playoff or just stick to 4 teams? All right, I'll make this brief because a number of you already on here have heard me talk about the playoff and what should be done. So we've got 5 conferences, we've got 4 slots, so that doesn't make sense. Just doesn't make sense. You win your conference, you should get into the playoff. Otherwise, why have conferences? And also, we don't know, because there's a limited amount of non-conference games amongst these teams, really how good they are. We've had a number of seasons. If you go through every college football season and start from last season and go back, you can find a ton of teams that won their conference and were definitely the best team in their conference. And maybe they went 7-2 or 6-2, or even if they went undefeated, and maybe they lost a game out of conference, or they dominated the conference, lost that game out of conference, or vice versa. They They were less than perfect or sterling within the conference, but they won a big non-conference game. So really nobody outside the conference proved that they could beat that particular team. This is just repeated a situation each and every year where they play in silos. They play 12 games. They play 8 or 9 in silos. They play so many FCS and group of 5 games that they only play one Power 5 game, maybe 2. It's getting better. The scheduling is getting much better, a la USC playing a Notre Dame and a Texas, where a lot of teams now are playing 2 Power 5. So I like that. But I will change the scheduling. I would change the scheduling, and these guys have heard this all too many times, machine unit. So I will spare the other viewers of my schedule analysis and my schedule format that I would go with, because I've talked about that many times, and I'll get to that some other time as well. But the scheduling needs to be addressed. And then you go to an 8-team playoff. The reason you don't go with 6 is because then you create a similar controversy that you have now. You are favoring teams. Right now, you're favoring conferences. In that situation, with a 16 playoff, you would have to favor certain teams, and that wouldn't be fair. Go through, since the playoffs started in 2014, and add the teams that you think would have made the number 5 and number 6 slots, and then give 2 buys to those teams. And we talked about this the other night, and it would be completely unfair. It's just a huge advantage in a situation where you need to win 3 games to win a national championship, and 2 teams only have to win 2 games. It's completely unfair. So you go with 8 teams. You basically, if you're going to include the group of 5, you need to make a decision about the group of 5. And that decision has to either be, we formally include you. So we go to 8 teams, and we always take the best of the group of 5, and that would be determined by best record. And then if there's a tie where there's 3 11-1 group of 5 teams, they would have to determine who's the best qualifier. That could either be by committee, or it could be some kind of computer formula. But if you either include formally the group of 5 and give them that respect, and not tease them by saying, you're included, but you're never going to be good enough. Because if you produce a 13-0 team and they can't make it, then there's something drastically wrong. You've got a 13-0 team that can't make it to the playoff. The group of 5 situation is hopeless. So you either formally include them as one of the 8, or you say, you know what, go play your own playoff. We're just the Power 5. And then you play the 8 teams, and you've got one group of 5, you've got 5 champions, you get 2 wild cards. And I'm not going to break down how I do the wild cards, but there are very logical ways to determine the wild cards. This past year would have been easy. Wisconsin and Alabama are the wild cards. They're the only teams in the nation that had 1 loss and did not win a conference championship. So there you go, 8 teams. That's only 8 out of 130. That's only 6% of the field makes it to the playoffs. It's still the elite of the elite. All right, Mark, what do you think the score will be? Maryland at Texas. Guys can't hold me to these scores in June, but Texas, Maryland, neutral field. Maryland's going to be better. They've got to settle on a quarterback. They've got 3 playing right now. Unfortunately for them, probably their 2 best quarterbacks couldn't participate in spring, coming off injuries from last season, Bortenschlager and Pigrome. Maryland's going to be a little bit better. Now, Texas obviously lost that game at home. They return the favor. Texas wins this thing 34-20. There's your score. Open subjects today. Yes, open subjects excluding SI top 100 players. I'm going to run through those. NCIS Fanatic 21. If you didn't hear me, I have secured, hopefully, it's never secure until they actually come on and we conduct the interview, but Glenn Mason, Big Ten Network. All right. What else do we have here? I have a Twitter account, but I don't post any tweets. I can follow you if I want. Well, if you're not going to post any tweets, NCIS Fanatic 21, maybe I will, maybe I won't, if you don't care. 16 teams in the playoffs, that's another deal, Savage. 19 Savage, 16-team playoff would have to go this way. You'd have to include all the conference champions. And then you say, group of 5, you're fully vested in this. We've got 10 conferences total. We include all the conference champions. And then we've got 6 wild cards. You could do it that way. And I don't mind that way at all. It's kind of a model of the NCAA basketball tournament. And you're not trying to pretend that you've got the 16 best teams in the country, because you don't. You have the 5 Power Fives, and then you've got these 6 wild cards. So you've got the 11, hopefully the 11 best teams in the country. And then you've got a huge drop off most likely. And then you've got, like, you know, a couple teams that are around 40, 45, and maybe, you know, who's the worst conference in the country? Probably the Sun Belt or Conference USA, one of those 2 conferences. So whoever wins those conferences is typically like the 70th or 75th best team in the country. But under the system, they would have earned it. So there's your 16-team playoff. All right. Yeah. Salid likes Travis Homer is the best back in the ACC. So Salid, please check out our video. Ryan Cantor, Shaking the Southland, SB Nation Clemson platform, and myself knocked out our top 5 running backs in the ACC. I don't think you will be pleased with either one of us concerning our Travis Homer pick. LSU superfan Mark, you should try to get an interview with Cardell Thomas. Okay. That's my first suggestion for the day. I will take it. Cardell Thomas. At this pace, we're not going to get to the SI 100, but I don't think it's going to change before tomorrow, so that's fine. All right. Good video. Thank you, Clemson alum 98. Mr. Pancake. All right. Machine Unit. Top 4 teams can have a bye. Oh, my goodness, 19 Savage. You're going to give 4 teams a bye. So who are those going to be? I don't like it. 8 teams. No buys. Did rivalry month not go the way you wanted it to, Mark? So here's the problem. I thought it was a good idea. And the discussions we had were great. I think I knocked out 7. Ohio State, Michigan, USC, UCLA, Florida State, Clemson, Florida, Florida State, Miami, Florida State, Kentucky, Tennessee, Arkansas, Mizzou was kind of off the radar, of course, but it's just so difficult. It's difficult enough tracking a person down and lining up a time. I'm busy, they're busy, and we go back and forth a zillion times, especially if I don't really know the person. It's different if it's Mike Laval or Kevin McGuffey or Stephen M. Smith. They get right back to me. I've got them on text, bam. But some of these other people that I'm getting on for the first time, or if even some of the contributors like a Parker Gabriel, who's really great from Husker Extra, but we don't communicate on a regular basis, so he may not get back to me, and it's difficult to connect. So that's one person. To get 2 people plus myself together, it's just been difficult. But I envisioned, yes, these just great discussions, which they have been. Hopefully you guys have liked them. They're not getting a ton of views. But, man, the Florida-Tennessee conversation was great. In Miami, Florida State, we blew that out for almost 2 hours and would have kept going. Those guys would have stayed on forever. James Coleman and Cam Underwood, they were on fire, and I had to shut them down because I had the next set of guests lined up. But those were great. But and June is the month to do it, so we'll give it another shot next year. I am not opposed to doing more rivalry talk here, but I'm not necessarily going to break my back to try to set it up for the rest of the month. But I would have liked to have gotten to Alabama, Auburn, of course, and some of the other big ones, Auburn, Georgia, and on and on and on and on and on. Cardell needs to come to Miami. All right, you guys are fighting over Cardell Thomas. I'm not a big recruiting guy. You guys know that. Pancakes only exist in Nebraska. We invented it. Now, of course, the pancake block almost invented by one Orlando Pace. Ryan just followed me. Thank you, Ryan. I will get to it as soon as we get off, if I remember. If not, you'll have to nudge me. What do you guys think of this new transfer rule? That's something we need to address at some point. I'm not going to do it right now. All right. North Dakota State needs to join the FBS. who's coming on the channel next. So Cashboy D, you may have missed it. Yeah, recently Jerry DiNardo, Big Ten Network, Mitch Light, Athlon Sports, and Cover 2 podcast. Glenn Mason, hopefully this week from the Big Ten Network. Big Wednesday night with Ohio State Talk at 7 p.m. Eastern Time with 3 big guests, Tony Gerdeman, Steve Hellwagon, and Claire Crawford. 8:30 with our guy, for the first time on Mark Rogers TV. We've got Mr. Holloway lined up and his YouTube channel at 8:30 talking Miami, so I know that you guys will be riled up about that. And at 10 o'clock SEC with Last Word on College Football's Kevin McGuffey and Mike LeBall. That's all I've got scheduled in terms of guests this week. I'm going to focus on all my lists. You guys want lists, so I'm going to focus on creating lists. I probably spend too much time going back and forth with people saying, what about Wednesday at 7:30? No, can't make that. Okay, how about Friday at noon? Oh, I can't make that. And then they say, what about Thursday at 8? Well, no, I already have somebody scheduled. Maybe I can move them. I'll keep getting really good guests on, but it's going to have to be worth it. Cardell Thomas, any relation to Cardell Jones? Mark, do the playoffs like the FCS? Yeah. Sure seems to work in other sports, especially that. George says, I hope Florida gets a recruit sometime soon, blah, blah, blah. Don't know what you're going with there. Clemson alum 98. Lamar, yes, and the football situation on Hall will continue to deteriorate, which is death sentence for Pac-12 long term. So Lamar's letting us know that Cardell is the #1 rated guard in recruiting rankings. He wants the LA boys, Louisiana boys, to stay home and take the national championship, and if they don't spread their talent, they will win it. Mark, you think a Michigan thumping of Notre Dame by like 30 launches Harbaugh to a Big Ten title? Okay, Iron Cross, it's very important for Michigan to play well and win that game in South Bend for a number of reasons. Of course, from a national perspective, it's going to help the Big Ten when playoff time comes around and the playoff selection committee is saying, okay, how strong is the conference? I know they say they don't do that, but they do that. So obviously winning at Notre Dame, whatever the result at Notre Dame, has nothing to do with winning the Big Ten championship. Technically, those are just conference games. Of course, I believe you know that, but I think you're talking about psyche. I think that's a little bit overrated. Plenty of teams go out and lose non-conference games and then win their conference. Happens all the time. So, yes, it's important for Michigan if they want to make the college football playoff. It's important because, yes, their psyche, you would think. I don't like to try to project or guess what people are thinking or the level of their mental toughness or their confidence. I don't try to be a mind reader like we see way too much from these analysts during these games. They're reading minds and they're telling us who looks confident and who doesn't look confident. I think that's way overblown. I needed to turn a light on that I missed. That's way overblown. But so I'm not going to do that. But there is something to that would give them a lot of confidence going into the Big Ten schedule, especially considering what happened to them last year. So it's important, but it technically doesn't affect the Big Ten race. I think James Madison and North Dakota State need to join the FBS. Okay, where are they going to join? So North Dakota State would have to join maybe the Mountain West, and James Madison jumps into where? Conference USA. The Pac-12 is down because we got a sorry commissioner. Nobody can watch the Pac-12 games and recruits leave the West Coast to be seen. So Jamie brings up something that's pretty much consensus from Pac-12 fans, and that's that I can't think of the commissioner's name. Scott, can't think of his first name. Mr. Scott, Larry Scott, not doing the job for the Pac-12. And the network has been a disaster. And the money issues with the Pac-12 right now compared to, not that they're losing money, but compared to the other conferences, is an issue. Notre Dame will definitely lose. Not sure if our offense will be good enough to hammer them, though. Michigan fans, do not worry about hammering Notre Dame. Worry about leaving South Bend with a 1-point win. That will be a tremendous accomplishment. You will have beaten one of the 15 best teams in America in their stadium. So let's not be concerned about blowing people out. Michigan, you lost 5 games last year. Just win. Win the game against a good team. You did not beat a good team last year. Purdue is the best team you beat. They went 6-6 in the regular season. All right, where are we? Big Ten landscape is changing. Michigan needs to keep up or they can get left behind. Get the Pac-12 network nationwide and more. 3 to 8 p.m. Eastern Time Pac-12 games. So what a lot of Pac-12 people that I have on complain about are the late night Saturday games in the Pac-12. Of course, it's like 8 o'clock there. So they say, well, it hurts us on the East Coast because nobody watches those games. Yes and no, I get it. Not everybody's staying up till 2 in the morning on Saturday night, Sunday morning to watch Pac-12 football like I am. At the same time, if they would play those earlier, most people in the Eastern time zone are going to watch the better games in the SEC, the ACC, and the Big Ten. They're going to watch those prime time games at 8 o'clock on ESPN and ABC and Fox and not watch games that are on FS1 that are Utah and Arizona, those types of games, those third-tier games. Sure, the Stanford-Washington game is going to grab attention and most likely be picked up by an ESPN or a Fox or ABC, and it gets a 3:30 slot, or it gets a 5 o'clock Western slot that goes to 8 o'clock primetime on the East Coast. But you can look at that both ways in terms of whether the late-night games in the East time zone help or hurt the Pac-12. Most people think they hurt because people are going to bed. But I got to think that in terms of hardcore college football fans, they help because I'm not watching Arizona and Utah play at 8 o'clock at night in the Eastern time zone when there's a ton of great games. I'm not going to watch that on FS2 when there's Ohio State and Penn State are playing a primetime game and Clemson and Florida State are playing on ABC, and there's like 3 really good primetime games. And even on ESPN, ESPN2, they're showing like 2 SEC games. There's like an LSU Auburn game on, and there's like Florida, South Carolina's on. So there's like 5 games better than Arizona, Utah on. So I'm not going to watch that game. But when those games in primetime on the East Coast are over, from the ACC and the Big Ten and the SEC. And then I can click into the, halfway through the first quarter of UCLA and Arizona or Utah and Oregon or whoever, then I watch that game. And so I watch a lot of Pac-12 football because they play on Thursday night, they play on Friday. They play on Friday more than any of the major conferences by far. When does the SEC ever play on a Friday? Even the ACC or the Big Ten don't play on Fridays. The Big 12, I don't think they've played on Fridays. That's a Pac-12 spot. They play some Friday games, and I think that helps them. Even on Thursday, those other leagues, except for the ACC, play some Thursday games and have traditionally slotted a lot of North Carolina State kind of games. Not that particular game because they play the last game of the season, but a lot of those kind of games. They had Miami Duke, I remember, played on a Thursday night last year. But the Big Ten doesn't mess around much on Thursday night, nor does the SEC. That's where the Pac-12, I think they have to do those things. They have to kind of take, even though they're much higher than the MAC has basically said, who is watching, unless you're alumni or family or friends, who is watching MAC football on a Saturday afternoon or Saturday night? No one. It's like the 14th best game going on at that point. So let's play. And they even noticed Thursday, there's a game or 2 that are really good. So let's go play on Tuesday and Wednesday. And it seems ridiculous for college football to be played on Tuesday and Wednesday, but They have the stage to themselves nationally. And the Pac-12 has done that to a smaller extent to say, we're going to play more Thursday games. We're going to play some Friday games. And we're going to be the best game of the night. Boy, that was a long-winded answer, huh? Kansas and Oregon State and Tennessee need to join the FCS. Who's my favorite team? I mention this from time to time, don't I? The stream sometimes jumps on me, so I don't know where I am. Pac-12 Network isn't very popular, and their media days aren't really covered as much as the other Power 5 conferences. 2 conferences ruined by Texas, the Southwest Conference, and now the Big 12. That's a common theme from Navy Thomas 8. Donovan says the only Pac-12 game worth watching is either the Pac-12 championship or USC UCLA, but even then, it's still kind of not worth watching. So Donovan, you don't want to see Stanford and Washington play. You don't want to see USC and Stanford play. Really? I love watching the Pac-12 play. But then again, I'm going to watch any college football Power 5 game, and I'll watch a lot of Group of 5 on Thursday and Friday nights as well. Friday night seems to be the Group of 5 night, unless the Pac-12 jumps in with something. All right. Ricky, do you think North Dakota State would be a better fit in the MAC or Mountain West? I think they're a better Mountain West fit. You got Wyoming right there. Colorado State. I know Minnesota from the Big Ten's right there in Nebraska. Yeah, geographically, I'm leaning toward the entire Mountain West is positioned where it needs to be. Outside of San Diego State's a bit of a stretch, but it's where it needs to be. Where the Big Ten, you're going to go North Dakota State all the way to Maryland and Rutgers. And I know Nebraska is doing that already, but it's really a stretch. So I'm thinking or you were saying MAC, I'm sorry, the MAC in Ohio and Indiana, Michigan. I like North Dakota State in the Mountain West. All right. Did I miss anything from you guys? If I did, I apologize. Lamar's not going to bed on a good game. I don't either. I will, however, something Call of Duty on a bad football game, which is 70% of Pac-12 games are. Yeah, so definitely for me, it's usually midnight on a Saturday night, and the primetime games on ESPN, ABC, and Fox are done. So the Penn State-Michigan game just concluded, and also LSU and Auburn, and the South Carolina-Georgia game, whatever. And obviously these games go long, so they always spill into the next window of the next game. So it's about the second quarter, and then I start to rummage around if I don't know already, and I see that on Fox 1 or late night on ESPN, there's 2 Pac-12 games, and it's Washington State and Oregon, and it's Utah and Colorado, and I'll determine which one is the better game. Maybe one's already 28-0, so I steer to the other game, or it's obvious based on the matchups that one is a better matchup, a better game with better players. So I watch that game, and then during the commercials, bam, I go to the other option, and I sit there till 2 o'clock in the morning. As you guys, if you caught me last season, well, no, because then I jump on here and I give you instant analysis of Utah and Oregon. Oklahoma State plays Missouri State August 30th. Why? Jamie's asking, why USC and Wazoo play on Friday or Washington Stanford? Because they've got the stage to themselves. USC and Washington State played an important game last season on a Friday night. USC was upset in Pullman. And that was the talk of college football. Then SportsCenter comes on. That's all they talk about, USC and Washington State. USC and Washington State play on a Saturday night, and maybe they'll talk about that 6th. But on Friday night, they'll talk about that game for 10 or 12 minutes. It gives more attention to the Pac-12. NCIS Fanatic 21, he loves those week-a-day weeknight games. OU Bowling Green. Iron Cross, did I fail to breathe? Did I go on there for a while? Holding my breath underwater. Best thing a struggling conference can do is schedule out of conference games. Big wins or slim losses can benefit you. Matthew Gonzalez. Thank you for joining Mark Rogers TV, Matthew. Please subscribe. And that makes total sense. So some of the programs that have been elevated or who have ascended in the last 30 or 35 years, like Florida State, Miami, you know what they did? They went out and they scheduled the big boys. And even if they couldn't get a return game, like Florida State played Ohio State in 81 and 82, and they played Nebraska and they played Notre Dame, and they couldn't get any of those schools to come to Florida State. That seems ridiculous now, but this was 35 years ago plus. Bobby Bowden said, we got to go play these guys. And they went, and for the most part, they went and they won, and things started to change. All right. What else we got? The real Pac-12 question, then it jumped on me again. Mark, of the stadiums you have not been to, which are you most anxious to see? Well, I haven't been to that many stadiums, most of them in the SEC. I've been to Alabama. I've been to Auburn. I've been to Mississippi State. I've been to Ole Miss. I've been to the Liberty Bowl, which obviously is the home of the Memphis Tigers and also a bowl game. I've been to whatever stadium they play in Jackson, Mississippi. They'll play some non-conference or some, at the time, Mississippi State and Ole Miss would go down there and play like one game a year against the Citadel or VMI. Where else have I been? Ohio Stadium in Columbus. I haven't been to too many college football games since I stopped actually covering college football on the sideline in the booth, and that was my assignment. That was my job. I shouldn't say my assignment. Nobody assigned me, kind of assigned myself. But when that was my job, since I've been doing this and since I've worked the job that I do, my regular job, which is in television sports, but I'm at home. I'm not traveling. I've covered and gone to the Georgia Dome for bowl games and SEC championship games. So I was pretty much locked into the SEC, so I wasn't going elsewhere. I went to more basketball arenas, actually, than football stadiums. So I haven't been to that many football stadiums. I would like to go to the Big House, go to Happy Valley. I would love to go to the Rose Bowl, the Coliseum. It's not high on the list, of course. I would like to go everywhere, but let's say top 5. So whoever asked this, let's go Clemson alum 98. Let's go top 5. If I had 5 stadiums I've never been to, I would like to go to both Death Valleys, Clemson, LSU, the Big House, Michigan, the Rose Bowl for an actual Rose Bowl game. And this is kind of a default answer. It's not a specific stadium. They almost always play in Philadelphia. But if I could go to the Army-Navy game, that's kind of a different deal. That's not to necessarily just see great football and football talent. That goes beyond, of course, the football aspect. That's the greatest rivalry because of the patriotism involved. So let's put off Army-Navy because I want to throw one more out there. I'd like to go to the Red River rivalry, go to Oklahoma and Texas playing at the Cotton Bowl. We could do that. All right. Moorhead probably saw some in the locker room and had to get out of there. All right. Anybody else on here with anything interesting? All right. Yeah, Jamie knows I'm an Ohio State fan, so that comes out from time to time. I'm not ashamed of that. I'm not keeping that a secret. So, but at the same time, I don't, I'm not publicizing myself as an Ohio State fan with an Ohio State channel because I love college football top to bottom. And obviously, whoever you choose to watch, they're either a fan of a team and they just go I'm a crazy fan and this is all I do, and I'm going to wear the jersey all the time or the hat, and I've got banners all over the place and jerseys, and I'm a Oklahoma fan and this is who I am. I don't want to do that because I'm covering all of college football and I'm trying to do it. And when I say trying, I believe I'm doing it, but we're all biased. We're all biased, but I try to rid myself of the bias and try to bring it straight forward. And the two things that I can point to that would back that up would be, number one, there being a time, not necessarily too recently, that I had tons of Ohio State fans all over me because they had no idea who I rooted for. And they thought that I was just a Buckeye basher and thought I was unfair to Ohio State. And I thought, hey, I'm doing my job then. If Ohio State fans don't know I'm a Buckeyes fan and they think that I'm being unfair to Ohio State, then maybe I'm doing my job. And point number two was when Ohio State was selected for the playoff in 2016, and I vehemently argued and put down the gauntlet for Penn State as the Big Ten champion to be in the playoff. So I do my best to analyze the games and the issues and the topics and rank the people and the teams and the coaches and everything and do it straightforward. All right, Gables Kane, can't be friends. Yeah, I didn't throw the flag. And Gable Canes, we can talk about that at some point, and we talked about it a number of times, the legitimacy of that flag. Lamar's been to Army, Navy. It's just okay. It's a military. I'm a military brat. It's just okay, huh? I've never been to Dallas Cowboys Stadium. NFL stadiums. I've only been to a few NFL games. I'm the guy that likes to sit on the couch on Sunday afternoon. And that's the thing with college football, doing what I'm trying to do right here. Like I got an invite to Autzen Stadium for Oregon, Ohio State. But what kind of college football am I going to cover that weekend? I'm going to cover one game. I'm not going to cover 8 games like I typically do because I'm going to cover Ohio State and Oregon. And that's the problem with going to the games. So my job in Mississippi, and as I have promised, NCIS Fanatic 21, we will discuss my career at some point. But when I was covering the SEC on a Saturday, let's say the game's at 3:30, and it's in Tuscaloosa, and I'm an hour away, and there's traffic. So me and my driver, my news guy, my camera guy, et cetera, I'm going with another guy. We want to get to the game by 2:30 at the latest for 3:30. And in the Central Time Zone, it was 2:30, but I'm thinking Eastern Time Zone, so we'll stay there. 3:30 kickoff. We want to get there at the latest at 2:30 because they feed the media pretty well at these games. And so it's always a nice spread. So we want to get there by 2:30. So we've got to leave at 12:30 with traffic. Got to leave at 12:30. So you don't watch any football before that because you're loading gear, you're loading the car, you're getting ready. You make sure you got everything and that you got enough batteries and the mics work and the audio works and the whole deal. So you take off. You don't see any football. You go to a 3:30 game at Alabama and you watch Alabama and LSU play. I remember a Deshae Townsend interception that saved an Alabama win in the late 90s. So anyway, I'm at the Alabama-LSU game. It kicks off at 3:30. It's over at 6:45. You go to the locker room. You interview the players. You get the post-game from the coach. This takes 45 minutes after they cool off for 10 minutes. And then you interview the players, and it's 7:30, 7:45. You drive back to the station, and it's 8:45. It's 9 o'clock. You unpack your gear. It's 9 o'clock, and you've got to prepare a story for the 10 o'clock news. And you're just looking through highlights, and you're preparing your story. And basically, you sit through the 10 o'clock news, and you rush and rush and rush to get the right edits and the right interview clips and put the story together. And it's 10:30 at night. You get home. It's 11 o'clock at night. So you haven't seen any college football all day except what you saw on the field, Alabama, LSU. I'd rather be here watching all the games. All right, dude, I'm a Michigan fan, and Notre Dame, Michigan is not top 5. Okay, Big Bubba Blue, you're saying that Michigan, Notre Dame is not one of the 5 best non-conference games this season? Okay, Ricky's only gone to games at Soldier Field. I'm a Bears fan. Too bad 28 would like to go to Tennessee, and that would certainly be up there. Machine Unit, dude, the 2 programs with the most wins and the highest winning percentage always plays a good game. Okay, Ricky, could you do a what-if segment of the Big 12 disbanding? Who would drop down? Who would go to the SEC, the Big 10, or the Pac-12? Ricky, put that in your back pocket, because I don't want to sit here and say, yeah, I'm going to do that, because it's June 23rd, whatever it is, and I'm focused on the season. I've got to get you guys ready for the season, and there's so much to talk about for the season that's a post-spring signing day topic. That's like a mid to late April after the last spring game to June. That's when you hit all those, your all-time teams, your what-if scenarios, your all the stuff that we call evergreen. That means it can last and last and last and can be watched at any time. We got to focus on 2018, Ricky. So I like it, but man, that would just takes, to do it right, it just takes a lot of thought and research and just to think it through, because I hate to tackle a subject like that. And I've done this before where I thought, okay, somebody's requesting this, and really there's a ton to think about here. And I just kind of glanced at a few things, thought about it for a few minutes, and then I, bam, just knock out a video. And then people write in and they say, you forgot that, or what about this? And I'm like, yeah, okay. So I don't want to shortchange the topic. Jamie wants to go to Clemson. Who's been to Fenway Park? I've been there once. It was about 2005. Ken Griffey Jr. and the Reds in town. Adam Dunn, Austin Kearns. Yeah, went to a guy that I work with, Fenway Park, that one time. Been to the old Yankee Stadium, the new Yankee Stadium, Shea Stadium, Citi Field, whatever they call the stadium for the Nationals in D.C., Nationals Park. Been to the old Cleveland Stadium, been to Jacobs Field and Progressive Field, they call it now. Been to Three Rivers Stadium in Pittsburgh, been to the new PNC Park. Been to the old Riverfront in Cincinnati, been to the new stadium in Cincinnati, baseball stadiums. Been to Coors Field, been to Anaheim Stadium, been many times outside of the stadium, Petco Park in San Diego. Never went to a game, but I've walked around. I actually sat with a friend outside of the gate in San Diego and watched a San Diego State game. We didn't really watch, but it was being played at the time. Major League Baseball stadiums. I think I'm missing a few. So anyway, Philadelphia, Citizens Bank Park. All right, Matthew, night games in Miami are on another level. Just ask Notre Dame. All right, somebody just restarted YouTube. So what you're going to have to do there, whoever that was, I lost you, restarted YouTube. So what you're going to have to do is hang with us here. And when the video is over, when I'm done streaming, it'll process in post. It won't take long. It'll process in post in about 10 minutes, and then you can watch from the beginning. Machine Unit, who has the best college football atmosphere, Mark? I've heard LSU is the place on Saturday nights. So again, I've been to Alabama, Tennessee, Mississippi State, Ole Miss, Ohio State. I've basically been in the SEC in Ohio State, so I haven't seen that many games up close and personal to give it to you in that fashion. I would think the best atmospheres are the ones that we all know. Clemson, Michigan, Ohio State, Alabama, LSU. LSU is supposed to be out of this world, especially when they're good, which who knows when they're going to be good again. Lamar likes the Tigers 23-17 over the Canes. That might spark another LSU-Miami fight here. Got to have one of those every day. Matthew, top 5 rivalries in college football. Again, that's more of an off-season deal. I can almost do that off the top of my head. I'm going to throw away Army-Navy as another category, another just transcends football. Top 5. Number 1 is Ohio State, Michigan. Number 2 is Alabama, Auburn. Number 3 is Oklahoma, Texas. Number 4 is Miami, Florida State. Number 5. Number 5, we're going to go with I really don't want to put the same team in 2 different rivalries, so I'm going to steer away from Florida State. Georgia, Auburn, I'm going to steer away from that because everybody should have one rival. Tennessee's got like 10. Ohio State, Michigan, number 1. Alabama, Auburn, number 2. Oklahoma, Texas, number 3. Number 4, who did I say? I said Miami, Florida State. Number 5, USC, UCLA. We'll go with that right now. All right. Yeah, USC, Notre Dame. I got you. I hear you. USC, Notre Dame, USC, UCLA. That's a tough call for me. And 19 Savage likes the Dodgers. He hates the Yankees. Wisconsin always bumping. Lamar, that's too nice. The real score, 48-10. All right, folks, it's 4:55. I'm going to be on here for a little longer, but not a whole lot longer, and I don't see anything else on the stream. So you guys let me know what you think about this top 100 from Sports Illustrated. They do this every year. We talked about this last year as well. Let's start from number 1. I would normally do a countdown from 100 on down, but you can't really comment on where somebody's being placed if you don't know necessarily who's in front of them. So you can look at that either way. Ed Oliver, defensive tackle from Houston, number 1. So it's interesting, first of all, that there's a group of 5 player listed as the best player in college football. Number 2, this guy seems like he's been playing for Houston forever. He's been dominant since the day he stepped on the field on campus. So he's pretty amazing. Ed Oliver, Houston, defensive tackle. Get to see him play against the big team. So it's been Oklahoma, Louisville, and Florida State in the bowl game a few years ago. And yes, he has been amazing. And the NFL GMs love him. And I don't know if this came into play, the NFL prospectus, as to how good they would be at the next level. I hope not. I'm going to hit this light. It's driving me crazy. Ed Oliver, number 1 player in the nation, according to Sports Illustrated. Bryce Love is number 2, running back, Stanford. Had something going on here. I have no idea what that is. I may have to come back. Who knows? Very interesting. All right, Bryce Love, the running back from Stanford, at number 2. Christian Wilkins, defensive end, Clemson, at number 3. I think I might have had some kind of short over here. Might be causing me an issue. So we'll go with the top 5, and we'll start there. Ed Oliver, defensive tackle from Houston, at number 1. Bryce Love, number 2. Stanford running back. Christian Wilkins, defensive end, Clemson, number 3. Number 4 is Khalil Tate, quarterback from Arizona. Number 5, Nick Bosa, defensive end from Ohio State. I think what the issue is we have weather moving in. It's getting really nasty outside. So I heard something get shaken up in here. So it's getting rather nasty outside. So we'll see if that hurts our transmission. But that's the top 5 in college football. And I know the first issue I'm going to have with this list is going to be lack of representation on the offensive line. Because think about it. We've got 1 quarterback playing for every team. We've got 5 offensive linemen. So we should, in the typical year, not that it should be like this every year, because there are certain units that are stronger than others in particular years, but over the course of time, there should be just as many offensive linemen as quarterbacks. But except for the real stud offensive linemen that everybody knows about, that were All-Americans last year, it's difficult even for SI and the research that they do to evaluate offensive linemen. So they're going to undervalue offensive linemen. I guarantee there are more quarterbacks than offensive linemen on this list. All right, top 5 again. Ed Oliver, Houston. Bryce Love, Stanford. Christian Wilkins, Clemson. Khalil Tate, Arizona. He's way too high. Nick Bosa, Ohio State at number 5. 6 through 10. Jonathan Taylor, Wisconsin. Cleveland Farrell, Clemson defensive end. So they're putting the 2 defensive linemen for Clemson, and I'm sure the other ones are later on, Austin Bryant in particular. Cleveland Farrell at number 7. So 2 of the top 7 players in the nation are Clemson defensive linemen. Jaquan Johnson, safety from Miami at 8. Rashawn Gary at 9 from Michigan. And Dexter Lawrence, forgot about him. So Dexter Lawrence, in addition, defensive tackle from Clemson at number 10. This is how good the Clemson defensive line is. And I know this is just a list that doesn't mean anything. Sports Illustrated isn't necessarily the end-all, be-all, or the authority in college football, but they have rated 3 Clemson defensive linemen as the top 10 players in the nation. That's mind-boggling when you think about the dominance of one unit on one team, having 3 guys in the top 10 regardless of position. That's crazy. Even if they had 3 of the top 10 defensive linemen, that would be nuts. 3 of the top 10 players. Let's finish out the top 20, and then I should probably get going. Number 11, Greedy Williams, cornerback, LSU. Greedy Williams getting a lot of play here on the chat when you guys are arguing LSU and Miami. Jonah Williams, Alabama at 12. Mackenzie Milton, Central Florida at 13. I think he's a little bit high. Shaq Quarterman, Miami at 14. Trace McSorley at 15 from Penn State. Cam Smith at 16 from USC. A.J. Dillon, who we rated as the best running back in the ACC out of Boston College at 17. Deebo Samuel, hopefully he's going to play more than 3 games this year, caught 6 touchdowns or scored 6 touchdowns last year. Deebo at 18. Mac Wilson, linebacker, Alabama at 19. Trey Adams, the left tackle from Washington at number 20. And we'll pick up this conversation later and get your comments. And before I jump off, I don't want to miss anything that you guys have. Of course, machine unit, Chase Winovich should be in the top 10. NCIS Fanatic 21, Nick Bosa at 5. Lamar Stevens, go talk to Notre Dame about Miami jumping out on them early. They were ranked number 3 at the time. LSU was lucky to be in the top 25 this season. Too bad 28 says the best rivalries are the ones when there's some question in terms of who will win. So when I asked Steve Dace of Michigan Podcast a few weeks ago to talk rivalry month with me, his first response was, that's not a rivalry, meaning Ohio State, Michigan. And he said, it's not been a rivalry for the last 15 years. And I understand his perspective, but I countered with, that means Clemson, South Carolina is not a rivalry anymore. USC, UCLA is not a rivalry. Oregon State's not a rivalry. Washington State's not a rivalry. Alabama, Tennessee's not a rivalry. Penn State, Pitt probably won't be a rivalry for long. So I'm not going to go into that right now, but Ohio State, Michigan is still a great rivalry, and even when one side is dominating the other. You can't say, well, it's suddenly not become a rivalry, and it may be a rivalry in 3 years if things turn around. I think it takes a lot longer time to make that evaluation. Dennis says they're freshmen. He knows a freshman that's going to expose Greedy Williams. Dexter Lawrence is the best Clemson lineman. Jamie. Daquan Johnson, 5'10". Yikes. Ohio State, Michigan. When Michigan never wins, and Bama, Auburn, it's always for SEC championship. Is it really? Is it really, William? We can look at that. 19 Savage, big Indians fan. Love the tribe. That's my team, baseball. All right, everyone. Appreciate it. Again, join the content. It's all over the place in terms of top 10 quarterbacks, under the radar games. We're going to have 3 more of those for weeks 2, 3, and 4. Best non-conference games, top 10 there. We've talked to Jerry DiNardo from the Big Ten Network. Mitch Light, Athlons, joined us. Hopefully Glenn Mason will join us later this week. We've got a big Wednesday night planned right here at Mark Rogers TV, blowing out Ohio State coverage, Miami, and the SEC. And you guys can obviously always make your suggestions on what kind of content. What I've jotted down here is you guys want me to interview Cardell Thomas and knock out the top 5 rivalries in college football. I guess I just did that. I will, in terms of all-time stuff, I just don't think we can lock down on that right now because I want to get you guys set for the 2018 season. I still have to rank all the schedules. I want to do previews on all the teams. It's going to be chaos trying to get all this done before September 1st. Subscribe, like, and comment. Tell your friends, your family that we're here, Mark Rogers TV, bringing you the best in college football coverage, discussion, debate, and analysis. Always appreciated. I'm looking into ways to upgrade the channel, so I've got to back off a little bit on the content for the next several weeks. We'll see what I'm able to come up with, and hopefully getting some help as well. I've got a couple conversations this week. Also, 2 recruit interviews to be released in the next day or 2. Quentin Torber, he's a top 50 wide receivers committed to Mississippi State. Renardo Green, a top 35 corner to Florida State. We will finish up our discussion on the top 100 players according to SI. I will be back with a live stream. If not sooner, I will definitely be back at 6 o'clock Eastern time on Monday. 6 o'clock Eastern time tomorrow, right here at Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. We appreciate it. In the meantime, subscribe to Alonzo1219. Bring me subscribers and get yourself some swag. We'll see you next time.